Hello, and welcome to Why So Sidious, a nerd podcast, where we travel to a galaxy far, far away, all the way to Numenor, and back to the Southlands. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Why So Sidious Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Today, we are covering episode 4 of Rings of Power, titled The Great Wave. But before we get into that, we do have some early reviews out for Andor, and I wanted just to pop a couple of them off to you guys, see how you feel about it. So there are mostly positive, but a couple negative. So the first one, this show is going to be the show that gets me back into Star Wars, introduces new memorable characters. Another one, if you liked Rogue One, you'll like Andor. Slow character drama, very cinematic.
Hey.
Compared to Kenobi.
Hey.
Says the a Blade Runner feel in the first episode. The music is epic.
Okay. Down for that.
Another one. The show is angry at people that don't think Star Wars is political. So George was always kind of subtle about that. You know, obviously the original trilogy and the prequels have some kind of tie-ins to current events. So hopefully this isn't a little too heavy-handed. Hopefully they kind of keep that same thing going. And one other thing, there's no Easter eggs in the first 4 episodes. Lack of fan theories and discussion. And it also looks like we will be having 30-minute episodes.
Okay.
So yeah, overall, it's going to be a good story, but it seems like, you know, they're kind of going for a off-the-beat Star Wars, not, you know, Kenobi or Boba Fett or Mando. It's going to be completely different from those shows.
Yeah. Good. Love it. Yeah, exactly.
Dude,
Heard the first
comes out this week, bro.
Right, it comes out
4
couple days
days
after
so
this will be
excited.
posted.
Yeah. Like,
Bro, let's
yeah.
go.
and yeah, I heard it was basically the first 3 episodes was almost like the first movie out of a movie trilogy. So I heard it's beautiful. Can't wait. I'm all about the cinematics. And story, Ryan Johnson, not just cinematics. You got to have both. Whoa. I still trust in you. Real quick, did you know he directed the highest rated Breaking Bad episode there is, called Ozymandias? I just saw that today. Never knew that. So he is good at he doesn't understand Star Wars. He didn't get Star Wars and he ruined the writing and J.J. Abrams stuff, but that was a cool little tidbit I learned today.
Yeah, he personally insulted all of us directly, so
Yeah. You can get out of here.
Just waiting for our apology, Ryan. Don't worry.
All right, well, let's get into the reason we are here today. So before we dive deep, I'm going to give a quick little summary.
Before you continue listening to this episode, this is your official spoiler warning. So if you've not seen the content that we are about to cover, go ahead and go watch it real quick before you continue on. Or don't, I guess. Your call.
So the episode starts off with Muriel's prophecy of the dawn of Ragnarok. No, Numenor. Galadriel brings her proof of Sauron, but she still denies her pleas. Theo decides to take a trip back home for some more food and supplies, but runs into a little bit of orc trouble. At Khazad-dûm, the dwarves have some secrets of their own, but Elrond sees through the lies of the Jedi. Durin and his friendship grows, and he finds out what they're really mining. Later, they have an amazing scene about fathers and legacy, but they are headed to Lindon. Back to Numenor, Halbrand gives Galadriel some more wise counsel. Still a little sketchy. Ass-kicking ensues. Galadriel makes her way to the tower, finding out the truth about the king and Muriel's motives. A prophecy that's controlling her. Life and kings before. A prophecy misread could have been. Have you heard of him, lad? And I was also very upset. No Harfoots in this episode. Really missed them. Was intrigued to find out what happened next. Really missed them. Hope to get a lot next episode.
You know, I disagree,
Well
actually,
said.
Caleb.
Here on Why So
Stupid
Sidious,
take.
we love the Harfoots.
Yes, we've been told we are the biggest Harfoot fans, actually.
So, when we break down this episode, we're going to kind of start off in Numenor because I feel like the majority of the screen time is held there. And then afterwards, we'll kind of go through the other characters / locations. So, like I said, Queen Regent Miriel has a dream of giant waves crashing over the mountains and destroying the entire city. Kind of some Jojen Reed Green Dream vibes. This is a recurring nightmare Tolkien had as a child.
Oh.
Did you guys know that?
No.
So it started as a child where waves were crashing through the trees. And this was a dream he kept having until he wrote it down in the books, and then the dream kind of stopped after that.
What the
And also, Faramir in the Fellowship of the Ring book has a kind of similar dream that he tells Eowyn or someone else about. So there's
Like
this kind of
Gondor?
Tolkien thing that,
Like he has a
Gondor
dream.
being crashed.
Dude.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's
So
super
it's kind of
cool.
this, So it's kind of this thing Tolkien brought from his own life into his books and tied in these prophecies. So it's a pretty cool little backstory.
Okay. Take that, token truthers.
And obviously, and obviously just not a good omen. So Galadriel brings the scrolls to Miriel and tells her about Halbrand, the lost heir to the throne of the Southlands. Trying to convince her to join the fight, unite men and elves once more. But Numenor has chosen another path. Galadriel speaks with the king, but that doesn't work out too well. So JD, in this moment, did you kind of understand Miriel's motives more? Because obviously she keeps denying Galadriel over and over again, but you finally find out that she does have this prophecy that she's trying to protect Numenor the whole time.
Yeah. Of course, I didn't know what was up with her dad. Apparently he's on his friggin' deathbed, so... it is what it is. There was a lot of family drama. Like she said to Galadriel, you shouldn't speak on things you don't really know about.
Right.
But her vision was pretty crazy. Like, obviously, we didn't know it was a vision at first. So at first I was like, oh my God, there's big, like a huge tidal wave coming up and filling the valley in between a couple mountains. And then the wave actually goes over the peak of the tallest mountain. And I was like, wait a minute. That is outrageous. Waves don't go that high. Female body inspector. Outrageous. FBI. So that was pretty weird.
Love it. Other guys.
And
love it.
And then of course it's a vision. So, but it was a cool shot. It looked pretty scary. Nothing like a big ass tidal wave coming to ruin everybody's day.
Right.
Yeah, bro. The VFX on that they were incredible. Like, again, they put $1 billion into it, so they better be. But they are matching expectations, bro. Like that looked incredible. And yeah, so while I was watching, so there's a lot of times in shows where episodes start off with a dream of something incredibly drastic like that happening, and then the character awakes. And most of the time, I'm like, oh, this has got to be a dream. Like, this is a dream. This time, I was like, oh my God, are we getting the fall of Numenor already? Like, or what is... I guess I shouldn't have even said that. Well, obviously Numenor isn't around when Lord of the Rings comes around, so at some point it falls between now and Lord of the Rings, okay? It's not a thing in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's got to fall at some point. So I thought it was the fall of Numenor. And I'm not even saying that's how that happens. I really don't recall how exactly it happens. But I figured it was Sauron. Saruman, caused massive avalanches hundreds or thousands of miles away from where he was. So those wizards have incredible power. So I figured it was just Sauron, like bringing the ocean somehow to Numenor and raising the tides and destroying it. But she wakes up. But yeah, it was a beautiful shot, man. One of many. There were a lot of cinematic shots in this episode where you could take a screenshot of it and it's beautiful. So that was the first of many in this episode.
All right. Well, moving on. So we have a scene with the townsfolk. And the people think that the elf is controlling their queen. The elves are taking their gerbs. He's the same guy that got beat up by Halbrand in the last episode says, I say the queen is either blind or an elf lover. And then we get the scene of Chancellor Pharazôn, I guess is a character from the books.
Yeah.
He says, one elf could threaten us. I swear the elven hands will never take Numenor's helm. She will remain, as always, a kingdom of men. Drinks all around. I was thinking this, what a politician. Like, just classic, speaking up the people, telling them what they want. I really don't trust this guy. And that does kind of tie in with the Galadriel in her cell, where, Halbrand is teaching her how to negotiate and win wars off the battlefield. And, he says, see what happens when you stop galloping and give yourself a moment to speak.
Yeah.
And
Great. She's comparing me to a horse.
Right, yeah. And she locks up she locks up the 3 guards pretty easily, but when Pharazôn is in there, Halbrand says, if you know exactly where she's going, you could let her go. So, Dave, I see the leadership qualities and wisdom in Halbrand, but was he helping her or himself? And is he making a secret pact with Pharazôn?
I don't know about the thing with Pharazôn. I think with him, so he even tells Galadriel at one point, I'll give you one more chance to convince me not to stay here. So he strikes me as the character who, no matter what, his motives are self-serving. He just, even if, he is clever, he's smart, and he's helping Galadriel, but I don't think he would be helping her as much if it wasn't self-serving. So I believe whatever he is doing, it's going to further what he is trying to get to or stay. And I don't know, he said that to her saying, you can convince me to leave here. So I don't know if that's just a taunt or if he kind of wants her to convince him to leave Numenor and continue and, fulfill his legacy and his rightful, spot on the throne there. I don't really know at this point, but I don't believe he'll do anything that isn't self-serving right now.
JD, do you have any thoughts on Halbrand or the Pharazôn as a character?
Well, I'm still a big fan of Halbrand. I did like that speech that we were given. I just thought it was funny that this group of people were just going to follow anybody. Whoever was giving that speech, they were just going to eat it up and cheer.
Right.
Yeah.
Tamar was saying stuff. They're like, let's go. Pharazôn says some stuff. They're like, yes. It's just like wherever they're going. So
this guy, yeah.
And I found a little Easter egg. So I didn't really expect there to be any DC character appearances here, but I found Tamar. The actor's name is Jason Hood. Jason Todd. Red Hood. So the bets are off. The bets are off. I mean, that is clearly something. So something's going on there.
I felt a DC Lord of the Rings crossover event in this series. I just didn't really want to speak on it, but
so here we go. It's happening.
Yeah. It's here.
But another funny thing about what Tamar was saying, when he was giving his speech about the elves, I just imagined that in present day, like us as a society saying that about machines taking over. Like he's like, they take your jobs, they take your trade, they don't sleep, they don't tire, they don't age.
Yeah.
Okay. The elves are machines.
It did flesh out like the reason, Caleb, you had asked me, or JD, you had asked me in the premiere episode when we covered this, the first two, you were like, why do they hate elves so much here? Like, what's their, and so it kind of fleshed out that explanation, they're threatened. The main thing is they're just threatened because they know they're a superior being essentially at this point, and they're threatened. And I think the most point is they are afraid that one day they're going to return and take back the land that was given to them. I think they are afraid the elves are going to come back and reclaim Numenor as their home. And yeah, I think that's their main driving force for being as racist as they are against the elves.
That totally shed light on that situation. So it's just totally a threat to their society. I mean, I've seen all the Lord of the Rings a lot, and I never really realized how superior the elves were, like physically, or, I didn't really grasp the fact that they don't get tired and all that stuff. So apparently,
they don't sleep. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then I started to notice Galadriel, wherever she was, she's always standing. She never sits. When she was on the ship, like ostensibly leaving Numenor, she was just standing, like awkwardly standing, facing the people who were oaring the boats.
That's what Megan said.
So,
I think.
Yeah,
she's
totally.
like, are they just standing the whole boat ride over there? It's like, I don't know. I think it's a ceremony or something, but yeah, apparently they just never sit down.
Yeah, so it really shed some light on elves themselves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a helpful little scene there.
So after that, she breaks into the tower, and Muriel is waiting for her. She wants to know, like, all right, just tell me the truth. Like, why are you so against elves? So she brings her upstairs, shows her the Palantir, and almost got like kind of Sauron theme music, kind of like dark vibes when she was walking up to it.
Yeah.
And my first thought, don't put your hand on that. I was like, don't do it. I thought something bad was going to happen.
Pip, drop it. Don't touch it, Pip.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
But it gives her the exact same vision as Muriel, Numenor's future. And the vision starts with Galadriel showing up. So now we know it kind of ties into the last episode, where she was talking to the king saying, she is here, Father,
Yeah.
Because we kind of thought that could be a tie-in to something else, but it really was just her talking to her sick dad.
Right.
When she went to grab that seeing stone, obviously the tower, the Eye of Sauron's not built, but I totally expected her to see that
right.
Threatening, that eyeball staring right at her kind of thing,
Yeah.
But obviously that wouldn't happen. But I also expected something with Sauron instead of a repeat of what the Queen Regent saw.
Same.
So it was it seems like the stone is not personal at all. It didn't show Galadriel a threat of the elves or a Sauron threat taking over. It showed her the same thing it showed Queen Regent. It seemed like it had one specific vision for whoever touched it,
Yeah,
right.
And it says the previous kings saw that, or had the same vision in mind too.
Right. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, and props to Dave, literally called that out from episode 2 or something. He was like, when Queen Regent is talking to the father, you're like, I bet she's literally talking or looking at a seeing stone, which was a cool theory, and then that showed to be true in this episode.
Yeah, so I ended up being half right on that, because, I was thinking she might be talking to Adar through the Palantir in that scene. I think she was talking to her dad, since she, again, repeatedly called him father, but she does have a Palantir, so she could have been speaking into that point, I don't know, but she was at some point, looking into a Palantir's ball and had one. So it's half right on that. Yeah. That was a cool little thing when I saw that. I got a little excited.
It was a good call. One might think that you have one of the 6 lost seeing stones.
I do.
Is this true?
I plead the 5th. But yes, I do.
You just said you did.
Yeah. Wrong order.
I do have a seeing stone, but I plead the 5th.
But I am not going to answer the fact that yes, I do. So it was really cool seeing the Palantir brought into it. Like JD was saying, all that. We were kind of theorizing about that in the premiere episode we did. I wasn't sure if we were going to get one or not, but it's pretty cool what we did. So we've already talked about the Silmarils a little bit. In the last episode, I covered the greatest elf smith, Fëanor, who is an uncle of Galadriel or something. He's related to Galadriel in some way, I forget. So he not only created the Silmarils, he was actually the one who created the Palantirs as well. And so there are, I think it's 7. I think there was 8 total, and 7 were lost. So real quick, just a little backstory. Well, I already started it. The backstory is, Fëanor created these things. They're known as seeing stones. There are 8 that are known of. So there's 8 that are known of. 7 of them were lost, though. It's believed that one is called the Master Stone, and it's the chief of all of them. So essentially, that's the host of this 8-ball network thing. That's the guy, that's the producer, that's the host right there, controlling whatever goes through this. So the whole thing of how it's the same dream for multiple people, it's interesting because for a while, so the Dunedain, who is another name for the Numenors, just kind of in the future, again, Aragorn is a Dunedain ranger. They used them in Middle-earth at one point. They spread 7 of them to different locations across Middle-earth, and they used it as communication, to communicate with each other. It's essentially FaceTime for them, or whatever you want to call it, throughout, so they could communicate easily across the entire land. So I don't understand the wave thing, other than the fact that I'm assuming somebody has the chief one, or whatever the case is, and that's what's been projected through that. One, I'm not really sure. So the dream part of it is a little confusing, but I'm sure they're going to be going somewhere with it. They write it really well. Another interesting thing real quick is the elves actually gave one of them to Elendil's father, which I think is the one we're seeing right now, if I had to guess. But again, I don't know, because we know at one point the lore is going to split from the actual lore written by Tolkien and the Silmarillion and everything else. We know it's not 100% lined up. So I don't know if that's the case, but in the books, the elves initially gave that one to Elendil's father, and they play a pretty large role in the fate of Numenor, but I'm not going to dive into that at all because that gets into deep spoiler territory. But again, there's a lot about Numenor that I won't get into because it could result in spoiler stuff that we see later in the season, but they might split from it, so I don't know. Wow. That guy's hauling ass, huh? So we don't know. We don't know when the lore is going to split, but they play a very important role in Middle-earth, so it was really cool to see that thrown in this early in the season.
maybe Sauron has the main Palantir, and he's kind of putting these visions in them to keep, because he's trying to keep Numenor out of the fight. So this prophecy is keeping them at bay, keeping them away from Middle Earth, so Sauron can take over.
Great point. Using fear through the Palantir to control. That makes a lot of sense. They actually had Aragorn, which is funny because again he's in the line of Isildur, so he has Numenor blood. They had a deleted scene where in Return of the King he actually picked up the Palantir and was actually able to withstand it and master it while holding it. But they ended up taking that out of the movie. But just another hint at the whole fact that, this is deeply involved with the Numenor and his people.
Another deleted scene that should not have been taken out of Revenge of the Sith, Return of the King.
Right.
A lot of good stuff, but it was already 3.5 hours, so it's tough.
Yeah.
So before we move on from Galadriel, we'll talk about this final scene. So at first, she's getting sent back to the elves. Mission failed. When she's on that boat, I first thought, she could probably take those 5 guys. And you can tell right off the bat, Elendil is second guessing everything. He's looking up there like, damn, I think we made a mistake. And then immediately you can tell, the prophecy is still coming true. Like she just made a big mistake. And then there's that kind of narration, the tears of the valor themselves, a living reminder that their eyes and their judgment are upon us. And there is a fateful hour in the destiny of men. So basically, she sends her out and she sees, oh crap, like the white tree is still blowing. Sending her away did not change anything, and actually, we need to help her out.
Yeah,
so
it causes
says,
it.
I will personally escort her to Middle Earth. So they're going to the Southlands. So do you guys think that the people of Numenor are really down for this? Because it seems like we're very against this, but they're also kind of just like they'll support whoever's leading them, kind of, they kind of follow the leader.
So that scene actually confused me because I was wondering why she sent Galadriel away. I thought maybe is she playing a sleight of hand so the public thinks that she sent the elf away because everyone wanted the elf to leave, and then behind everyone's back brought her back and then announced publicly that they're going to be allies and go to war, or go to the Southlands with Galadriel. It was just kind of confusing. You might have shed some light on it, saying that she saw that the White Leaves situation was still happening, so she brought her back. I don't know how she would communicate to a boat that's already set sail, but I was confused because she announced to the public that she's left, and then Galadriel came back. So I was like, what?
Yeah. So yeah, she sends her off because she's talking to the Chancellor about it, and he's like, the people are going to be stoked when you tell them that the elf is leaving. Like they're all excited for it. They're like, it's a celebration. You get to give them good news. You're kicking the elf out. Dope. But at that point, the leaves hadn't started falling yet. The only time we saw the leaves started falling was at the start of her dream, the prophecy, and that's what kickstarts everything in action. And so after she's sending her out on the boat, she sees the leaves starts falling, and her and Elendil kind of give each other looks, and she's realizing, yeah, like Lub said, this isn't avoiding the prophecy. This is the first step to the prophecy, is me casting Galadriel out of here. And they were still in the harbor, and it was again, I think they did this. Yeah, they did this in episode 1 where they showed like an end meeting, and then they just skipped ahead to a scene where some stuff had already happened and a decision was changed, and they were enacting on the changed decision. So it was the same with this. They were sailing away, but they were looking at each other, giving those looks, and they weren't out of the harbor yet, and then they skipped to her still being there. So again, you have to assume that she called to regards or called to Galadriel and said stop or whatever the case is. But that is the second time in the show they've changed their decision behind off screen, and then the next scene is that decision being like,
I think they're just going for this what's more cinematic, what like looks cooler, kind of.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah. I just didn't understand because she just came back. You would have to do something. How is she? If she's already setting sail, you'd have to light the beacons or something. The beacons are lit. Return.
But it was like immediate, like Dave said. She was still pretty close in the harbor still when
the leaves
petals started blowing.
So yeah, I think they were still within at least shouting range. Sound carries over water. You can scream pretty loud, I guess.
Sure.
Sure. So before we leave Numenor, I forgot to throw this in there, and I don't know how because I was so excited when I saw this in the episode and have been very excited to tell you guys about it. So when the Queen Regent, I think her name's Muriel. I keep forgetting it. When she leads Galadriel, okay. When she leads Galadriel into the tower to show her the Palantir's ball up there, there's a brief glimpse, but I caught it. I freaking caught it. So they're walking by, and it shows they're in the room. It shows Galadriel, and behind her, in the very back, pinned up, kind of like on display, is a sword, and that sword is Anduril, which, if you don't know what Anduril is, that is the blade that Isildur cut Sauron's finger off with, that Elrond reforged in Return of the King and gave to Aragorn, which honestly was I thought it was one of the cooler scenes in Return of the King, is when Elrond reforges the sword of Isildur and presents it to Aragorn, and he has that dramatic unsheathing of it, and the score picks up. I get chills when I see that scene. So I've always talked about how cool I think that sword looks. And when I was a kid, I had a little catalog where that sword was on sale. You could buy like replica stuff that came with the DVD sets of Lord of the Rings. But it was like $300, and I was like 10, and I knew my mom wasn't going to go for it. I wanted it so bad. Maybe one day I'll ask my wife if I can buy it. But anyways, that was the sword. But so it's gold.
They kind of zoomed in.
Okay, I think they at least lingered.
They linger. Because I know it was super gold.
Yes. So the gold sword. So I had to double check before we started recording. I turned the episode back on. I went to that scene and I paused it. It is the sword. Exact pommel. Everything is the exact same. It's just gold instead of the black. So that's freaking awesome because I have this personal obsession with that sword. But also, I believe that was Elendil's before Sauron struck him down. And then I think Isildur picked up his sword. And then, so my guess is on this mission they're going to, Elendil has to recruit all these people to go to war. He says, who will go to war, essentially? And Isildur is one of the first to throw his hands up. So I'm thinking the queen honors him kind of. She already gave him a new sword, so maybe Isildur. But I think she honors Elendil with this sword, and Elendil kind of as a gesture of showing that he has regained his faith in his son's path because he's been so frustrated with his son leaving and getting kicked out of the Sea Guard and everything. I think that might be like a token of him showing respect to his son and handing down that sword. Whatever happens, I'm excited to see it in action again, and I'm just super stoked they brought it back into the show. So that was a very cool Easter egg I was very excited about.
One last part of Numenor. We got a couple Isildur scenes this episode. He's on his trial, and the voice is calling out to him once again from the west. Losing his focus, failing the test, getting him and 2 others kicked out. Now, he kind of made it seem like he did it on purpose, thinking only he would get banished for it. And homie pulls an Aragorn, hope he didn't break any toes. And then, when he kicks the bucket, that totally reminded me of Aragorn. Yeah, right. Like what you said.
Just waiting for the yell.
And obviously, and then like we said, later he pledges for the fight. And the voice that was calling out to him, it kind of sounded like an older Galadriel.
Interesting. Yeah, they keep having that whisper, like you said. They keep whispering his name. And so I wasn't sure where he was looking last time. I thought he was looking towards Middle-earth, which is east of Numenor. But people after the episode were saying he was looking at Numenor. But then in this episode, he's kind of looking, I think they're east of Numenor right now, and he's looking past Numenor. He's looking west. Because at one point, after they get kicked out, his friend is like, the west, the real Numenor, that garbage that your brother spewed, that he's always thinking about. Right. So I can't get too much into it again because of spoiler reasons, but I will say, this won't really be a spoiler, there are a group of Numenorians who fall on the elf side of things. Let's just say that. There's a group of Numenorians that fall on the elf side of things, and west of Numenor is Valinor, which is the holy land, essentially, of the elves. That's their homeland. So the fact that Isildur is kind of caught up and being called to from the west kind of lays out a little possibility for his future and his relationship with the elves.
JD, you got anything else on Numenor?
I did want to talk about Galadriel and her conversation with the Queen Regent right before she gets thrown in jail. Can I just say how much I absolutely love Galadriel, dude, as an actress?
Same.
Yes.
Yeah. When the Queen Regent denied her request to ally the Numenor and the elves and walks away from Galadriel, dude, the actress is amazing. She just pauses. Do you remember that? And she just shuts her eyes and takes a deep breath.
Yep.
Like the actress portrayed
like I'm
that
about
really
to do
well.
This.
Well, I thought she was gonna like do something violent. You know what I mean? I thought she was just gonna turn around. And, I mean, not
throwing
really,
knife her,
but I mean, she looked pissed, dude. And she is a warrior at heart. She just does a great job at. I mean, she's a warrior, but she does a great job at politicking and negotiating, using her words instead of violence. And she portrayed that so well in that moment. You know, she wanted to let loose on the queen right there, but instead she takes a deep breath and continues with diplomacy, showing a lot of self-control. But as soon as she turns around and she was like, the queen says something about a tempest, and she was like, there is a tempest in me that brought me here, and it's not going to be quelled by you, regent.
I thought she said that so
reminded me of yes. It reminded me of Fellowship when she loses her mind on Frodo and she's like, in the place of a dark lord, you would have a queen, treacherous as the sea. Like I was like, oh, she's gonna go there.
It scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. Right, and she's also arguing on Halbrand's behalf on how he might be this exiled king, and that led to a little funny moment when the queen was like, I suppose Elendil here is a runic emperor. He's like, just a petty lord, actually. He has a little funny looks on his face. Yeah.
I would argue she couldn't work on her diplomacy, but Halbrand's having to teach her how to rock it better because she's so aggressive.
Very true, but she tries her best as a warrior. She just kind of she gives it a good shot.
Yeah. No, I love her.
And a Isildur. Isildur getting kicked out of the thing on purpose. I felt so bad for those other 3 dudes. Because, I mean, those other 2 guys. He was literally like, dude, ever since I touched an oar as a child, this is all I wanted to do. And you just on a whim decided you didn't want to be here, so you got us all kicked out, which was not his intention, but it's still like you feel bad for that guy.
Right.
But he got a second chance.
Yeah, so, I mean, he did volunteer to go on that little quest to the Southland. So Isildur is fine, and I guess those other 2 dudes are going too, but that's not that wasn't their life goal.
Right.
They'll be holding that oar.
Last thing, I guess I was wrong about my prediction about the king in the tower. I said it could be Elror, but it's not Elror because homie is aged like not wine. The opposite of wine. He looks awful. But I do have something else on Elror later. But yeah, I rebuke my prediction that king in the tower is Elror.
Well, let's move to the Southlands. We got Adar. I'm surprised we kind of predicted they would kind of hold it off for another episode, but they went right into it. So we get the reveal, scarred face. He is the Benjen Stark actor from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Looks like a kind of a dark side elf. He's pale as hell, but the orcs look to him as a god, and they're kind of his children. He kind of cares about them the way that one's dying, you know?
Yeah.
He's like in tears.
That was emotional.
And then we get the chat with him and Arondir. He says, you have been told so many lies. Some run so deep, even the roots and rocks believe them. I am not a god, at least. Not yet. Mm-hmm. And he gives him a message. I thought maybe, the Sauron returns, but he says, later Arondir says, your people may live if you forsake your lands and swear fealty to him. He's coming for Ostrith. And also a confirmation that they are searching for the dagger, which was another one of Dave's theories. There you go, Dave.
Yeah.
So, JD, what were your overall thoughts on the Adar reveal? And just him as a creepy guy.
Yeah, I loved our first appearance of Snape. I mean, Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, Adar.
Snape.
He was super menacing. He had zero emotion. He just spoke. He said he's not a god yet, implying he plans to become godlike, just like Sauron was. Which, I mean, I don't know. I mean, did this confirm that he is not Sauron, or could he still be Sauron embodying this guy? Is it still a mystery?
It could still be open.
Yeah, I got the sense that he's still Sauron. At the same time, I got the sense that he's definitely not Sauron, so that's confusing to me and the audience probably. Anyway, it was cool. He's very intimidating, and he tells Arondir to warn everybody about him. That's always fun. So yeah, I mean, I was stoked.
It's always fun.
Give him a heads up. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, that was very honorable of him to do that. He could have just wiped them out at night, but I know
Arondir's like, Thank God I get to just leave. I figured he'd die or something. He's like, all right, I'm free. All right, see you later, guys.
Yeah. Classic, let the guy go and send the message.
Right.
Yeah. If I'm ever a prisoner in my life, I'm just going to be like, hey, you need any messages sent like back home so you know not to fuck with you guys?
Got any important things you need said? I'm your guy.
Yeah.
So after watching this scene, I don't think he's Sauron anymore. I don't think it's a zero possibility at this point. I think the opening is still there, but I think he's a first lieutenant of Sauron, just as Sauron was a first lieutenant to Morgoth at this point. I don't think it's Sauron. For not many, but there's just a lot of stuff where it just felt like this isn't him. They wouldn't, A, reveal it so quickly, B, I don't know. There wasn't enough stuff that could have easily been put in there to nod towards him possibly being Sauron. Also, I have a theory. I kind of brought it up as a possibility last time, but it was a very long shot. But I feel like there's a more possible chance that it's Elror. He's an elf who obviously had some stuff happen to him, but he's 100% an elf at one point. And again, Elrond's brother, Elror, he was the king of Numenor, and he got kicked out, essentially, by men, was spurned, sent into exile, and obviously some other stuff would have had to happen to lead him to this point, which I'm very excited and curious to see what the story and background is to that, but I'm gonna make the theory of he is Elror, and it's very possible he's not, but that's my fun little theory after watching this.
He does look like Hugo Weaving.
Right? A little bit. Looks more like Elrond than Elrond looks like Elrond in this.
Yeah.
So, something in this scene regarding the orcs themselves. So, what stuck out to me, they seem more disciplined, uniformed than other orcs we've seen in the trilogy. Like, the orcs in the trilogy were tearing each other apart just on a whim. They were killing each other. It didn't matter. Like, they had no organization, no discipline. They were just absolute chaos. And it feels like we're seeing a group of orc who are different. They're the ancestors. They had more stuff together. They're fighting for a cause that they know they're fighting for. And they have respect for this leader they have, Adar. Even if it's not Sauron, obviously they worship this guy. But they were, they all kneeled uniformly. They did this kind of ritual at the end with the dead body. They slowly carried him out while speaking black speech. They seem to be much more organized, and that comes off as more threatening to me. So I think that's a cool little addition to these orcs we're getting in this thing. They have horrible aim, though. I will say that. They have stormtrooper aim. Because those dudes couldn't hit anything, and then when they're out in the opening they're all at the tree line stopped, but those three are standing still. No arrows were flying for about a minute there. It was like, you can still shoot them. Again, even Megan was like, what? They have arrows. Yeah, I don't know. And then they started flying in, and it was like, there they are. They're just 10 feet off, but there they are. Like,
short.
I will say, maybe they don't all carry a bow and arrow, and they were a little unorganized running through the forest, and they weren't prepared to line up and shoot arrows.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not everyone can be Legolas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But you're right. They are much more organized. Remember, he goes, we've had nothing but bread for 3 stinking days. Yeah. I want some meat. And they just...
You nailed that.
Kill each other.
Yeah.
And they just slaughter each other at that point.
They don't need them. Yeah, so they're very intimidating this time around.
Let's talk about Elrond and Durin. So first we get the scene with him and Disa. Durin is off on some secret quest that he can't know about. Disa does a decent job covering for him when she gets her shit together.
Yeah.
He's kind of figuring things out, then she kind of... She it was convincing.
Hits him with the passive aggressiveness.
Yeah, we clearly see it's a lie right after. Durin says, we're making good progress in the old mind. And Elrond kind of starts putting things together. He's pretty wise. And he realized the kids were singing the secret code to open up the door, which was kind of a cool little...
Did you pick up on that?
They were doing it on purpose.
Did you pick up on that the first time watching? I rewatched today, and it was like... Because at first I was like, how the hell did he just guess that? Like, out of nowhere. And then I watched again today, I was like... that's the song the kids are singing. Dang, okay. Like,
right.
Yeah, so it made more sense.
The mom was Disa was yelling like, "Stop! Shut up!" Like,
yeah,
be quiet.
She got pissed. Yeah,
because they were doing the secret code.
Yeah, it made sense actually.
Right. At first, I was like, "What?" He just hit the stones a few times and sang it a song, and then it opened up.
He just knew the rhythm in the song. Like, it did make sense.
Yeah.
But they covered their tracks on that one.
Yeah. So he eventually finds Durin, and Durin does, tell him what's going on. I definitely missed these two from the last episode, and he makes an oath to never tell anyone. And it's lighter than silk, harder than iron, lit from within, gray glitter, mithril.
Bro.
So, Dave, you got any backstory on mithril and how it kind of ties into Lord of the Rings as a whole?
Yeah, man. Another really, really cool, exciting thing to see brought into this series along with the Palantir Ball. So, obviously, mithril, we saw it in the original trilogy. Before the original trilogy, the dwarves gifted it to Bilbo after the adventures in The Hobbit. They gave that to him at the end, kind of a thank you gift. And Bilbo ends up giving it to Frodo and Rivendell during the Council of Elrond and the Fellowship of the Ring when they're deciding what to do with the ring. And it's also what saves Frodo from getting killed by the cave troll spear. But yeah, really, really cool. Again, it's the vibranium of the Tolkien universe. Men call it true silver or Moria silver. The dwarves actually have a secret name for it. I think he kind of said it in the show, but in the lore of it, we've never been told what the name of mithril is in Dwarvish. They just refer to it in front of everybody else as the Elvish word mithril, but they have their own secret word for it. But yeah, they say, like Leb said, lighter than silk, harder than iron. As weaponry, it would best our proudest blades. And that just sparked a thought of, holy crap, I would love to see a mithril weapon. I never even thought of it as being a weapon, so that would be awesome to see. And this one doesn't count as much. I did guess this, but I guessed 3 things total. What was in that chest when they opened it up at the end of the episode. So 30% right on that one. But yeah, very cool to see, man. It's a really cool ore to bring into this.
Yeah, before they named it Mithril, I kind of thought it might have been what they forged the Ring of Power with. But that was not the case. But yeah, I mean, it is exciting anytime you find some special metal, vibranium or adamantium or whatever it is, an infinity stone.
Unobtainium.
It also remind me of the thing Sam held up against the spider.
Oh, the light
that
of
big shining.
I forgot what it is. Yeah, that was some elvish thing.
Right.
I forgot
kind
what the name
of similar shape.
Yeah.
And a light from within,
cool.
but obviously different.
Yeah,
things.
That was an interesting comment, which makes you think of the white tree that they have in Numenor. That's from a seedling from the Tree of Life that was in Valinor that provided light. Like the sun wasn't the thing that provided light to the land; it was the tree itself. And now they found this ore that provides light itself. So it's interesting.
So the mines collapse. We get Disa showing off her lungs. Beautiful song.
Yeah.
And she says it's a plea to the rocks. But they all survived, which is kind of, I don't know, I thought maybe a couple might die, but they all survived. But
right, this is a cave.
Yeah, his father shut down the whole thing. Durin's pissed.
Mm-hmm.
But we get a great moment between Elrond and Durin. And Elrond starts talking about his father. And he says, he brought all the people over and he was, to forever carry the evening star. For many years I would look up at it, wondering would he be proud of what I've accomplished with his legacy, or disappointed by the countless ways I've failed to live up to it. To have one more conversation with my father. And he's basically saying, do not waste what time you have left with yours. And that kind of relates back with an earlier scene with Celebrimbor. When Elrond's dad kind of had that way of seeing far off. He says, one day my future would be in his son's hands. Said it quite casually, like tomorrow's rain. A lot of tie-ins and kind of, following your father's legacy.
Yeah, the Celebrimbor thing was like out of left field. That felt like he was almost using it to manipulate Elrond. That felt like I don't know. That was weird. But the scene with Elrond talking about his dad, I was laughing at the start of it because you got Durin here who is furious, absolutely furious, talking about how he's done. He's not going to speak to his father ever again. He hates his father, and Elrond comes in immediately with, yeah, my father was like perfect. I loved him so much. He was great. I really was like, dude, probably not the thing to say, right? So I was straight up laughing, but he turned it around quick. It turned into a really like meaningful, well done monologue. But I was straight up laughing at first. I was like, you're gonna piss him off right now.
And then he just goes and talks to his dad like on a super respectful level. It was weird. It kind of switched vibes, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, he swayed
But
him.
that's just...
Yeah.
For sure. I loved King Durin, dude. His dad was cool. He had such a presence, like a super wise, unyielding dad or king or whatever you want to call it. And I ended up being supportive of his son's sense that there was something more at work going on at Linden. Yeah, I just thought like his presence, not a lot of screen time, but I did like the King Durin character.
Yeah. Love. You got some dwarves working outside of your house right now with modern axes?
Yes. Modern axes.
Modern.
How about now? So after Elrond and Durin's chat, they kind of walk off and they start talking about who saved who, which was pretty a funny scene, because his wife wants to know the truth about the story about how they met. And, when he's talking to his dad, he says Elrond wasn't sent with ill intention, but there's more at work here. You're going to go off to Linden. But JD, I know you weren't the biggest fan of the portrayal of Elrond in the first episode. Has he grown on you in these last couple?
Yeah, he has grown on me. He's still like, when he's playing friendly, I still feel like he's just super dorky. But when he's serious, I am starting to feel that like, and the actor's really good.
Right.
When he is serious, I do feel that Elrond from the original trilogy, that presence. So he has grown on me, yes.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. And Dave, you got any thoughts on Elrond?
Yeah, so his relationship with Durin, I won't dive too deep into it, but I love it. I love what they're doing. It's kind of like a Legolas and Gimli, but it's different enough to where it's a different relationship than Legolas and Gimli. Right. It reminds you of it, but it's not the same relationship they have. I love their relationship, but it's kind of a bummer. We know something's going to happen. It might not be with Durin, but at one point, Elrond is going to be fed up with the dwarves because he has that line in the Fellowship. He's talking to Gandalf at the Council of Elrond, and he's telling him basically, he's like, look, we're leaving. Like, we are leaving Middle-earth. So who will you look to? The dwarves? They hide in their mountains seeking riches. They care nothing for the trouble of others. And he says this very bitterly. So at this point, he has no respect for the dwarves. So obviously something is going to happen. And we know the dwarves aren't in that prologue battle scene of Fellowship of the Ring, so maybe it's because the dwarves don't choose to fight against Sauron. But something is going to happen where this relationship between elves and dwarves will not be this way at all moving forward. So it's a bummer seeing this really cool relationship, but knowing it can only last so long. The other thing, just real quick, that I loved about this was seeing Elrond's, the elf sight and elf hearing in action. We see Legolas talking about it in the trilogies. Legolas, what do you see with your elf eyes? And he says everything, but we actually see a little effects of it from Elrond's point of view, zooming in with his eyes. So I thought that was a cool little thing they threw in.
So if the elves and the dwarves stop getting along at some point, I'd be willing to bet it has something to do with the tower being built. Something along the lines of like, it's 75% done and the dwarves are like, this is stupid. I'm just going to go back in my caves. I don't really care about this anyway. Like something along those lines. Like it's got to be something tied to that tower.
Or Word of Sauron. Word of Sauron comes and they're like, we got to go back to Khazad-dûm and protect our homeland.
True. Yeah, that could also totally be it.
Yeah, I didn't expect them to build the tower in the Dwarf Kingdom. So, yeah, I feel like there's probably got to be there's going to be conflict at one point. They don't get along very well, and they're building their most treasured piece of architecture in the Dwarf lands. So, yeah, I think that's a good point about the tower.
Yeah. All right, well, for our final location and characters, we're going to go back to the Southlands, kind of talk about Bronwyn and Theo. So we see that they're taking refuge in the Watchtower with the townsfolk, but they're running out of rations. Theo has the genius idea that he should go back to the village for more. And when they get there, all the animals are dead. Things aren't going well. His homie Bale's probably not the best guy to bring with you. Theo, once he comes across the orc when he's hiding, he pulls out Sauron's dagger or whatever. It's pretty much confirmed it's his.
Yeah.
And the orc very quickly recognizes the hilt, saying, where'd you get that from? Pretty cool scene. And then obviously it cuts back later and he's still hiding in the well. Theo tries for an escape and it's nighttime now and there's just orcs out everywhere. But he doesn't want to go back empty-handed. He still tries to grab some food to bring back with him, which I thought was a pretty dumb idea.
Like, what are you doing?
In the classic scene of where he looks back and smiles like, yay, I'm out of here, and then turns the corner and gets grabbed, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And all they want is the dagger. He's trying to get it from him again, and then Arondir comes up in the clutch, staves him, and we get that badass slow motion scene in the woods where he literally catches an arrow in midair, which is super sick to see.
Legolas
Senior over here.
Yeah. Loved that.
And it was a cool scene where you're talking about earlier how the cinematography when they finally reach outside the woods and they're saved by the sun, and it's that beautiful shot of the landscape, the sun in the background. The score is just beautiful. But Dave, how are you liking Theo as a character, and where do you see his future going? Like, it does not seem good.
Yeah, he kind of seems like a little punk. I mean, he's just wanting to help, so it's not, I don't know. But he's a teenage kid. He's got attitude problems. And I don't want to continue my pattern of this podcast of just absolutely ripping on prepubescent males like I did with Mike on Stranger Things. So I'm going to cut him some slack. But he does kind of seem like a little punk. But, I see a dark future for this kid. Like, he was already ready and willing to go into this orc thing. He's willing to stab this evil blade directly into his arm in order to, form the blade to cut the orc, which, yes, he has to do it. Otherwise, he's going to die. But he had no hesitation with that. He, knew exactly what he was doing. Stabbed himself and went to town. And he's got that scar on him. And then we get the guy talking to him, obviously, have you heard of him? Have you heard of Sauron? And he gets all freaked out, and that guy's got the same mark on his forearm, which I didn't realize that Theo got the sword from his place. He says, I know you took the hilt from my house. But yeah, man, I mean, obviously he's already holding this Sauron-infused weapon that corrupts people, so I don't see anything good coming out of this kid's future.
Right. And just to touch on that final scene, it's no sword, it is a power, fashioned for our ancestors by his master's own hand, a beautiful servant. He who was lost, but shall return. Have you heard of him, lad? Have you heard of Sauron? So does he relate to Harbrand and the blood oath his people took for Morgoth? And there could be secret sleeper agents of Sauron anywhere. Like, your neighbor could have that mark on his forearm and you'd never know.
It's like the Death Eaters from Harry Potter. Like the secret Voldemort worshippers who are undercover until Voldemort returns. But yeah, that is the Southlands who fought for him. So there's no doubt that there are some people there still waiting for his return.
Yep. JD, do you have any thoughts on that final scene with Theo?
I'm pretty neutral on Theo. The thing that brings you into his scenes is that sword. They're doing a good job with the mythology behind that. Mm-hmm. Like, much better than they did with the Necro sword in Love and Thunder, which was supposed to be a really cool sword, but... That's how it's working. Like, I can't wait to see what happens next with this sword as a character, dude. Like, I want to see where the sword goes next, And maybe it corrupts Soul Theo, maybe not. Arondir. Now, at first I thought he was superficially another Legolas character to throw to the fans with some flashy lights. And this is the first episode. Well, you also did follow him to the slave camps and stuff. So at that point, I was actually invested in his story anyway. But then you see his chops, like you said, when he caught the arrow, saved Theo initially. When you thought that blood splatter obviously made it look like Theo just got stabbed. Obviously, it was Arondir saving him. So I'm starting to really like Arondir. And I'm excited to see Galadriel and the Númenóreans come back and meet up with them, because they did a good job at separating storylines like Game of Thrones, which makes me think I would like to go back and watch episode 1 again, which I just did not like at all. But now that we've seen where the characters have been, it'd be really cool to see where they started in episode 1. So for the first time in my life, I was like, I might watch episode 1 again.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you got to kind of get that. I mean, think about it. Like, episode 1 of Game of Thrones, it was much better than the Rings of Power episode 1, but it wasn't amazing. But if you are finished with Game of Thrones and you go back and watch episode 1, it is really cool to see where it all started and all these characters that were together at one point and went on their own separate journeys. And it made that episode, and honestly the whole season of the first season of Game of Thrones, it made it much more special and just watchable, you know what I mean? So things are all coming together so well. Like, this show is really building something cool,
Yeah.
the elves and the Númenóreans are coming back to the Southlands.
Yeah.
That's pretty exciting.
They're
These two powerhouses they're setting things up. In the Two Towers, when Haldir shows up to Helm's Deep, and he says, an alliance used to exist between elves and men. I've come to honor that alliance. That made me think like, wait, so during Rings of Power, they kind of already played through the fact that elves and men were allies at one point, and then they weren't. But now they are again, and this is all before Two Towers. So what, are they going to like break up again? I mean, he made it seem like it's been a long time since they've had an alliance.
Yeah.
But obviously they have an alliance right now after not having an alliance. So are they going to break up again? Like what?
But they don't technically have an alliance, because what is Galgalad and Elrond going to think when she just shows up on Middle-earth with this army saying, all right, Sauron's ready? They have no idea what's going on right now. They're going to be like, what are you doing? You're not even supposed to be here right now.
Valinor, yeah. The hell? Yeah.
So I'm wondering how the reaction will... But she has proof now, so hopefully they follow along. But I'm wondering if they'll even be, down for this.
Yeah, I didn't consider that
sure.
aspect of it, actually.
Yeah, just there's constant change and fluctuation with the history of elves and men,
Say...
That is no Orcorn. That is no Orcorn. Sorry. I'll just say it a third time.
Are you going to do it?
Absolutely not, David. That is just excessive.
Well, even if you have them uniting here, I think them breaking apart again happens after their battle against Sauron, because they called that the last alliance of elves and men, were when they fought Sauron. So it's possible that if they somehow do come to an alliance right now, it lasts until the Battle of Sauron. But we do have 5 seasons planned, and I don't see it going that smoothly for 5 seasons. So, I mean, it's like a lot of, I don't know, all of our national relationships and stuff flip back and forth between, Saudi Arabia is our allies now, but it's switched many times over the course of history, and, a lot of nations switch back and forth between alliances depending on world events and stuff like that. So if they do split apart again, I'm sure they'll write it well, just because I trust their writing. So I'm sure it'll make sense.
Yeah, and we underestimate how long it was from the battle that Isildur cut Sauron's hand off. A lot of time passed in between that and the Two Towers. So yeah, I mean, however many hundreds of years, of course, then Haldir can come back and be like, yeah, there once was an alliance. Before that, it's not like they weren't allies anymore. They just went their separate ways, and their paths haven't crossed since then. So that's fine. Yeah,
I think it's like over 2,000 years between the prologue and Fellowship of the Ring. So there's a lot of time for separation and isolation to happen during that point.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think that about wraps it up. But before we leave, we're just going to give our ratings and a little quick overall thoughts of the episode. So, JD, why don't you go first?
Okay, this is tough to rate because I don't know if I like it. Actually, I do know. I think I do like it a little bit more than episode 3, which would make it my favorite episode.
Yeah.
It's really starting to feel special, like they've really got their footing. I'm really starting to get that feeling I did when I watched Lord of the Rings. I can't wait for what happens next. I think my optimism is pushing those feelings because of how good Lord of the Rings is, but at this point they've earned it, and I'm excited to see where it goes. But regardless, we are just at the beginning of this journey, so it's just becoming really exciting. Morfydd Clark plays such a good Galadriel, way better than I could have hoped for. I don't think I've been as infatuated by a female lead as I am with her. She's incredible. She carries the show. All of her screen time has me glued to the TV. So, I mean, she's awesome. Now we have Adar showing up, which is a huge villainous threat, which is something you need in a good series. His limited screen time was really good. Durin's going to Lindor. Things are spicing up there. We'll see what happens with this tower. Númenor's coming to the Southlands. Like, all these things are coming together and pushing the story forward. And I just cannot wait to see the next episode. And that right there is probably the most important factor in the quality of a series, So I'll go with barely liking it more than episode 3, so I'll give it an 8.9.
Wow.
8.9, okay.
Favorite episode so far.
And Dave, what would be your rating and overall thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, it was another solid episode, man. Again, I was really nervous coming into the series after I heard the news about them not having the rights to a lot of the lore and everything, and a lot of people freaking out online. Again, I've said it many times already on this podcast, but I texted you guys and was like, I'm worried. I'm really worried about this. But, people thought Amazon was just going to bastardize the lore of Tolkien. But man, after 4 episodes, my concerns are gone. Like, they're fully gone. This series not only has been great so far, but like JD said, it's set up so much stuff to look forward to. Like, there's so much stuff. Not only that, but it's one of the most fun shows to cover because there's so much stuff to theorize. They set up so many things to theorize about. Little Easter eggs here, little brief hints and foreshadowing. There's just so much stuff to speculate. And so it's a really fun watch because of that. But also because, again, it's just great writing, great acting, great VFX. And there still is minimum action in this episode. Like there was minimal action in this episode, and it's still incredibly entertaining. And again, I don't need an Expendables blowing up every minute kind of thing. And if it's written well, I don't even really need action. Again, because according to this, it's been great. But this is Lord of the Rings, We know what we're here for eventually. We want some crazy fight scenes too, and we're going to get it. I fully trust in it. So it's just amazing that they can do that already without throwing in incredible action scenes. So I have it rated as an 8.8 out of 10, which is pretty close to the highest I'm going to rate a Lord of the Rings thing without, a battle scene or a dope action set piece. So 8.8 out of 10, 8.8, sorry. Highest rating. It was below episode 3 for me for a bit, but those last 15 minutes, man, it pushed it over. So really solid episode.
What's cool is we can finally compare it to the House of the Dragon episodes, where at first I was like, this is clearly the inferior show, but now it's literally coming right up to it. So it's fun to compare both of them, and they're both really good. It's very exciting.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, and for my overall thoughts, and speaking on Game of Thrones, when the first episode came out, it was just like, all I want is Galadriel and Elrond. Don't give me all these other side stories. But now through episode 4, besides the Harfoots, mostly, all these side stories are really coming together, like Arondir and Theo and Bronwyn. I'm really interested in what's going on there. And then Elrond and Durin and all the dwarves and that stuff. And then, of course, Galadriel, Isildur. Like, all these side stories, everything's coming together, and they're really starting to push. It's been a lot of backstory and setting things up. But I feel like with this episode, things are really going forward now. Mm-hmm. So I have it rated as an 8.7, which is by far, I think, my highly rated episode. So I'm really excited for the future.
Nice. All around solid episode. I will say, for the Harfoot's sake, I am actually, I'm curious. I'm kind of excited to see what happens next episode, because there's still a lot of stuff with the Stranger, which ties in very thickly to their,
Gandalf.
Plot point. It better not be Gandalf. So episode 3 was rough, though. It just wasn't a good episode for the Harfoots. It was just nothing good happened. It was a little campy and goofy. But I actually, surprisingly, I'm interested in what next episode will bring in regards to the Harfoot and the Stranger.
Yeah, and like you said, it really is up there with House of the Dragon. Like, I am just as excited to watch the next episode for both shows. Before it was like House of the Dragon is first for sure, but now it's like, I'm watching it on Friday right when I get home.
Yep, it's capturing the magic of the original trilogy, dude. Like, it really is.
Yes.
And we just started.
Can't wait. And it's going to go on for longer.
5 seasons.
So they haven't started filming the second season yet, I don't think. So I hope we can get it within the next year. I would hope.
I haven't heard anything.
Right. Like next fall, next winter. You can't pull a Star Wars and have a Mandalorian 3-year gap in between seasons,
I hope not, man.
Oh, remember how tough it was to wait a year until the next Lord of the Ring movie, dude? That's what it's going to feel like from season 1 to season 2.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, Lub, there's actually an article that posted literally 2 weeks from today that said Rings of Power showrunners say season 2 will begin filming in a couple of weeks. So actually today. Any day now. Yeah, exactly. Could be as early as today, but any day now they're going to start filming. So that is good. I haven't seen that until right now. So that's encouraging.
There we go. So yeah, I mean, shoot for 3-4 months, VFX for 6 months, and you got a show. Well, I think that about wraps it up for another episode of Why So Sidious, a nerd podcast. Thank you for joining us on our breakdown of episode 4 of Rings of Power. Stay tuned for our continuing coverage of this show, along with House of the Dragon and Andor premiering in just a couple days. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at whysosidiouspod. Please join us next time.
The sky is red. Blood has been shed.